if you want to learn how to throw a baseball or you want to learn how to hit a golf club, nobody thinks twice about going to the range. Nobody makes fun of anybody that goes to the golf range.
That's the same
No one's
thing.
going to be like, oh, Matt's out practicing his golf swing again.
Same thing. I said Russell Wilson, same thing. What are they doing in practice? What's he doing in practice? He's throwing the same play over and over. The wide receivers, what are they doing? The same route over and over and over and over. So how do they master that? They do it over, they practice it.
What do you want to talk about?
Well, I think that we're discussing some of the basics of real estate. Like I just made a prospecting call, and I said, "How's business?" And the guys in the car business, and he said it's the worst month he's had in 5 years. And I said, "Damn." He goes, "Yep, ain't no thing. Back to the basics." This was a conversation literally 15 minutes ago. I'm like, yeah, that's funny. The guy, he works on exotic vehicles, supercars in Las Vegas. They do all the work for all the UFC guys, the owners, and big level stuff.
Right.
And it's interesting that his comment, he runs the entire shop, and his response was, back to the basics.
Right. Which brings up for me two things. One is just having that realization, that we should have to get back to the basics from time to time, like we're in sales.
Right.
And there are basic fundamental principles that help us succeed. And yet as we have success and as we become more and more successful, a lot of times we get away from the basics, right? It's a natural occurrence. So that's the first thing, is just like, when do you know you need to get back to the basics? And then the second thing is like, what does that look like? Which for me is asking me, like, everybody has a different definition of what the basics are. So in sales, and especially in real estate sales, what do you consider the basics?
In my opinion, I would like to focus always on dollar productive activities. That's where my sales quadrupled, was when I had that intention, and I was always focused on that intention. Which is scripts, prospecting, appointments, contracts, and negotiation. Now, obviously, you can break all those things down into further items, but for me, if I have a challenge, okay, basic scripts, I got to prospect again. Crap, I haven't practiced my scripts for a while. All right, let's just read these out real quick, get comfortable with it, get on the phone.
So one of the basic fundamental skill sets that you need to be successful in real estate sales is scripts. So let's talk just about scripts. What's scripts mean?
Well, that varies. I mean, it depends what it is that you're prospecting, right? What is your target audience? And it's are you doing expires? Are you doing for sale by owners? Are you doing events? Are you doing
there's
social
different
networking?
Kinds of scripts. Right? The other thing I think that's important is just like the mindset behind scripts. Because we were just talking about this. What's the mindset typically behind scripts? Right.
Well, I mean, and I was kind of anti-script. I don't want to be a salesman. I don't want to sound scripted. Right. Which none of us, we don't want to sound scripted.
We have these preconceived notions in our head about what a script is and what a script's going to sound like, and that people are going to know we're scripted, or that we ourselves have some sort of weird thing about being scripted. Right. One of a great mentor told me this a long time ago, and I've always latched onto this. But for me, a scripted conversation is a guided conversation. Right. That's how I've kind of wrapped my mind around scripting, is that get out of your head about what scripting is, get out of your head about all the things that you think scripting is, and just look at scripting as a guided conversation. And anytime you're talking to somebody who's a professional, could be a doctor, could be a lawyer, could be a real estate professional, or a salesperson, you have to understand, if you're an oncologist or if you're a doctor who specializes in cancer, even if it's a specific kind of cancer like brain cancer, you have to understand, every day you're breaking the news to someone that they have brain cancer. Right. Right? So do you think they have scripted conversations? Yeah, you bet they do. I'm telling you right now, your doctors have scripted conversations. Why? Because they know the best way to explain it to you. They want you to not be scared. They want you to understand. So yeah, they have had this conversation a million times, and what they're doing is they're having a guided, they don't call it a script, right? Doctors aren't going to use my brain cancer script, right? It'd be weird. But for whatever reason, our industry calls them scripts, right? Sales scripts, but they're having a guided conversation with somebody. Yes. they're taking somebody from a place that they probably don't know a whole lot about, and they're informing them and educating them and helping them make informed decisions by providing them information in a guided way, right, to help them reach conclusions. Now, granted, understand, doctors are not tied to the results necessarily.
Right.
If someone says, hey, man, I don't want treatment and I would rather die, right? I don't want this kind of treatment, I'm just going to go a natural pathway. Doctors don't have a say in that, right? They have the obligation of presenting you the best information they can to get you to make the most informed decision possible, but it's your decision. And I think people get confused sometimes with sales.
Yeah.
That we're like twisting people's arm, or
that's
that we're
what
trying.
A script is.
Right. That's what a script is. That you're trying to force someone to make the decision you want them to make. Not at all. Right. When I'm sitting down with somebody who wants to sell their house, and I'm talking to them about listing or marketing or setting the right price, my goal is for them to set the price of the home and get the house in the condition that it will sell for the most amount of money in the least amount of time with the least amount of hassle, so to speak. Right. Like that's a script. But I'm not, if they say no, they say no, right? If they want an extra $5,000, they want an extra $5,000. I've had conversations with people that they just want the convenience and the speed, and they're willing to set the price $10,000 lower than I suggest, right? And
absolutely.
I'm like, wait, I can get you more money. That's not what's important to me, right? So a scripted conversation is really a guided conversation, and I think sometimes we just have to get out of our head about it.
Absolutely.
So when you are looking at agents and they're having a problem with this, what do you think is the best way to help them get over it?
The scripts?
Well, just in general. Yeah. Starting to utilize scripts, starting to practice scripts, and starting to integrate scripts into their business.
Well, I think they have to go through challenges and recognize that they have to get on the phone and go through the failure of rejection and recognizing where that rejection came from, and then maybe seeing that the scripts they didn't practice could have helped them close a deal, or if not close a deal, help the client out and helping that client make a confident decision whether it was to move or not move.
Yeah, and it's funny because a lot of times when I have a conversation with experienced agents that say, I don't like scripts, right? Or I don't believe in scripts, or I don't use scripts. And yet they've been in the business a while, they're seasoned, they're experienced. When you start talking to them and you say, okay, well, so, you're a successful agent, Sally, and you've been in the business. I get you don't like scripts. But you take a lot of listings. Like what happens, what do you typically say to a seller who's unrealistic about the condition of their house? And they're like, oh, well, I usually tell them blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's a script.
That's a script.
That is a script. So that it's basically the way that you converse. So I think you're right. I mean, a lot of it's just getting out of our head about it and doing it.
Yep.
Right? But the other thing is practicing it. I think people have this weird thing about practicing it, which, again, it's a mindset issue, right? Like, if you want to learn how to throw a baseball or you want to learn how to hit a golf club, nobody thinks twice about going to the range. Nobody makes fun of anybody that goes to the golf range.
That's the same
No one's
thing.
going to be like, oh, Matt's out practicing his golf swing again.
Same thing. I say Russell Wilson, same thing. What are they doing in practice? What's he doing in practice? He's throwing the same play over and over. The wide receivers, what are they doing? The same route over and over and over and over. So how do they master that? They do it over, they practice it.
Right. Part of mastering your craft is practice. If you're in real estate sales or any kind of sales, fundamentally, practicing your craft, practicing those guided conversations. What do you say to somebody who's being unrealistic? How do you negotiate? How do you get someone to set the right price? How do you talk to a buyer about making an aggressive offer? If you haven't had these conversations or thought these conversations out ahead of time, then what you're doing is you're just practicing during game day. Right? Like it's Sunday, it's game day, and you're taking your first snap of the week. And I think where my heart goes, and where I know your heart goes, is as we've trained multiple agents over the years, we know that the agents that practice on their own get there faster because they're not practicing on the consumer, right? And then also, you're not, the learning curve shortens, right? So if you do one transaction or two transactions a month as a real estate broker, and you don't practice in between, in an annual year, you've done 24 transactions. That means you've practiced in your scripts maybe 24 times in a year throughout that transaction, when you could have done that in 2 weeks, right? You could have repped those out in 2 weeks, right? So the fear of the wanting to script, I think, is just a mindset thing. And it's just getting your mind right about what a script is, getting over the fact that it's not this clunky, salesy thing, and then it's practicing it. right?
And also too, it's hearing other people do it, you know? I mean, that's a lot of times that I'd have to get on the phone. And part of a script, our goal is to lower our sales skepticism. At any given time, that's where our objective should be, because that's the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome, is always sales skepticism. And how we're going to be able to do that is by practicing our scripts. And for example, like if you're calling somebody a number that you know somebody's getting called a lot, I won't use a rehearsed script. I'll do something else to change it up because I know that they've been getting beat up. So I'll just do something different. One time in particular, I wanted to change it up. This person got called probably 8 or 10 times. Their name was Roxanne. They picked up the phone. I go, Roxanne, and what it did was it lowered the sales skepticism, right? And then I got into my scripts, right? So it's not always like, hi, my name is Matt Chapman. I'm with Synergy Properties, and I just call to see if you like to buy, sell, or invest in real estate. It's not always that same context, but ultimately the goal is what you just said, is to guide them. Right. To guide them to...
Well, and quality, what I'm hearing you say too is the quality of your scripts, or the differentiation, because I think that's like, if we're stair-stepping this out, right? It's like, get your mind right about scripts. It's like, practice your scripts. But then the other thing is, don't use crappy scripts. Right? Don't use the same lame, or do you want to buy, sell, or invest in real estate this year? I'm happy to help you. Like, it's and that comes back to practice too, right? Like shaking it up, knowing who your target audience is, knowing who your consumer is, and then honing your scripts in. And the way that you hone your scripts in over time is by doing it, right? Knowing that, hey, every time I say this phrase, somebody's guard goes up. Or every time I say something this way, they seem to relax a little bit. And those little nuances, but that again comes from honing your scripts in, and practicing scripts with other people.
Seeing your scripts, like I just Keith was just singing to me right before this, and he called me down. I was like, yeah, you know what? That's really nice. Thank you.
It's my Top Gun script. So, okay, so we kind of hammered scripts a little bit. The last thing I'd say about scripts is I think that who you're around matters. I think that who you're in business with matters. And I think that finding people to script with is super important, and not other people who are also afraid or scared of scripts. One of the best things that ever helped me, I went to a conference, a real estate conference one time, and I met a guy, and we were in a conversation. He was talking about how he scripted. So I just asked him, I said, hey, you mind if I call you every morning? I script you for 15 minutes. And this dude was a master script guy. It was super intimidating, but I just called, and it was super simple. It was like, I would call him, and there was literally no chit chat. It was not like, hey Matt, Keith, how you doing? Good. All right, are you ready to script? Yeah, I'm ready to script. Okay, let's do our script. And it was none of that. It was like literally, he lived in Detroit, and I lived in Spokane, so there was a time difference. But it was like we would ring, right? So when the phone's ringing, when he'd answer, I would just go right into it, right? So he'd just say hello, and I'd say, hey, whatever, I'm not going to use his name, but hey, Tom, I said, this is Keith with XYZ. I'm just calling today because I see you previously had your house on the market. It looks like it didn't sell. I'm curious if you're still interested in selling your property today, right? And I would just go right into it. And as soon as I was done, he'd go right into his. He'd say, ring, ring, and I'd say hello, and he'd right into it. So one of those things was when you it's not just about practicing, it's how you practice. And it's about practicing with people that are better than you. It's about practicing with some of the best in the industry, in my opinion. So the 5 pillars, the 4 pillars you were talking about, you mentioned script. What else?
Prospecting.
And
people hear, well, that
again, we're back to a trigger word.
Yeah, that's a trigger word, big time. And when I say prospect, for me, I was so intentional in prospecting, like a drill sergeant with it. And I had got a lot of success with it. But as I had grown my team, and I had all the challenges coming with different real estate agents that didn't want to prospect the way that I prospected, I had to come up with new ways for them to get business. And it still was prospecting though. I mean, because some people just aren't going to go call expires or FSBOs. Okay, fine, you're not going to do that. I got to come up with another way for you to make contacts. It's still prospecting though. And that's where,
so again,
your target audience.
Wrapping our mindset around it properly, it's how we choose to define the terms. So trigger word, scripting, trigger word, prospecting, right? So immediately we go into what is prospecting? What do we mean when we say prospecting? And what I would ask any new agent, or I would talk to somebody right now who's listening to this, is potentially say, get rid of your mindset about what you think about prospecting right now, and learn to think about it differently. And what I think about prospecting is the activity of actively pursuing business that you don't currently have.
Yeah.
That is...
I just don't think I heard that.
There's nothing wrong with it. Right?
Yeah.
It's the activity of, it's setting the time aside in my day or my week or my schedule to actively pursue business that I don't already have.
Yep.
And one of the things that we run into all the time is people, they call lead follow-up prospecting.
Yeah, big difference.
Right?
Huge difference.
Following up with all the people that logged into my website, following up with all the people that I met at a networking event last week, following up with all the people that I sold a house to last year.
So what's that called?
That's lead follow-up.
That's follow-up.
It's follow-up. Right? If I'm contacting people that
That's not a trigger word.
that usually is comfortable for.
You're like, oh, I can do that.
I follow up with people. Maybe that's it. Maybe you call it lead follow. I don't know. Semantically speaking, though, I think it's important to have clear definitions. And I think scripts are guided conversation. I think that prospecting is the active pursuit of business that you don't already have or aren't currently working with, and setting time aside for that. So when I say I prospect 5 hours a week,
setting time aside. What?
Time block.
Oh,
right?
Time blocking.
But
that's
when
a whole other topic.
Right. Oh man, we can go so far down the rabbit hole. But when you go into prospecting mode, when I set time aside in my schedule throughout my week, and I say, listen, it's important for me to be actively pursuing new business.
Right.
I'm going to set time in my schedule, 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, or 5 days a week for these times to do that. Then it's important when you do that.
You just said 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, if you want to prospect for 2 days a week for 3 hours or 5 days a week for an hour, I think it's up to you. You can do it however you want.
I agree with that 100%. It's not about, like, people want to say that, oh, in real estate, you have to work 7 days a week, or you have to work weekends, you have to work nights. It's like, no, you do not have to do that.
No, absolutely.
If you're not going to do that, though, you have to make sure that you're committed. So if you are only going to do 2 days a week, fine. Okay. But if you're going to be 2 days a week, make sure you're consistent with that 2 days a week.
Yeah.
And committed to 2 days a week.
And that you're doing what you say you're going to do when you're going to do it. Meaning, if you say you're going to prospect 2 days a week for 2 hours, that in those 2 hours, you're not following up with people.
Right.
Right?
Not following up.
You're not entering names and numbers into your database.
You're not doing research to do your prospecting.
Oh, I love that one.
Right.
People are going to start calling expired listings. Yeah. Like, let me get on the county tax assess website. Let me get on the MLS. Let me look at deal. Doing all this research about a property, and then ring. They never answer the phone.
Right.
And you just burn 15 minutes.
Yep.
And then your 2 hours of prospecting, you got 6 dials in or something. Yep. And they say, well, I'm trying to hit my goals, Matt. Right. And I'm prospecting 2 hours a day, but I'm not getting there.
You say, well, what's the challenge here?
Right. So you dive into that, and what you find is, if you're like, well, if you're prospecting 2 hours a day and you're not getting there, in my opinion, you're terrible. Yeah. Maybe this isn't for you, or you're poorly scripted, or you're saying the wrong things. Or my guess is that you're not actually prospecting 2 hours a day. You're calling it that, but that's not what you're doing.
And nobody's keeping you accountable to that. Nobody's helping guide you to understand that there's these differences.
Right.
Maybe you don't even know.
I would say a lot of them don't know, or they just get comfortable calling it what they call it. So scripting, prospecting, lead follow-up, all very different things, all very important things, right? And then we talked a little bit about time management, right? Yeah. How do you manage your time?
That's everything. In fact, if there's one big challenge in our industry, and if there's a challenge that I would say that it's the biggest issue that I hear from most agents, it's going to be time management.
I think time management is a really important skill set early on as a real estate agent, but it gets more and more important as you get even busier, right? As your career progresses. I think initially time management for new agents is that new agents want to do the things that they like to do, and they don't want to do the things that they don't like to do. And so what I see is poor time management for newer agents or beginner agents, because they're just not allocating the appropriate times to the appropriate things. And that's really called poor prioritization, right? Yep. They're putting priorities on designing the perfect Christmas card to go out to my database, and they're not putting priorities on...
That was the key to that.
Yeah, right. Getting ready to get ready, making things neat or cool, or designing a new logo or a new business card. But the other thing I see is that, and this is something I was taught early on, is when you set the expectations for yourself and for your client you have the opportunity then to meet expectations. So, for example, if I tell all my clients that I'm actively working with, listen, here's the deal. You're going to hear from me every time I find a new property I think you might like via email. And if you like anything, please feel free to email or text me back. And I'm going to follow up with you on Tuesdays and Thursdays to make sure that we don't need to line any showings up. And I'm very clear with them about the fact that I follow up with them on Tuesdays and Thursdays, that I email them new properties. And when I tell them how I operate and I set expectation, then when they receive emails from me or they receive a follow-up call from me, I'm reinforcing the fact that Keith said he'd call on Tuesday, it's Tuesday, he just called me. He said he'd call on Thursday, it's Thursday, he just called me. Now what happens when I don't set those expectations is two things. One is I have a very hard time controlling my time because I feel like I have to be like following up with people all the time, or hey, I just sent John this property, I wonder if he got it, or blah, 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 blah. So I'm not now systemized. The other thing is that the person on the other end of this interaction, a lot of times they have this expectation that they just created that, hey, Keith should be following up with me every time he emails me a property to talk about it. And the consumer or my client is setting this expectation that, Keith should be following up with me, and all of a sudden I'm not meeting this expectation that they've arbitrarily set for me. And now I'm pigeonholed, right? Because I'm working super hard and I'm sending people new properties and I'm trying to find them houses that work for them, and I'm following up with them. But if I don't relay to them how I do it and set the expectation, then it's up to them on how they want to interpret it, right? So again, time management for new agents is prioritize, do what's important. But as you get even more and more further along and become more successful in sales, I think time management allows you to easily set and meet expectations with the consumer.
This topic is exciting.
Which gives you to the level of professionalism. And then when they tell people about you, they say things like, Matt's awesome, dude. Like every week, man, he was giving me new properties. He was blasting me out. He was following up with me twice a week, right when he said he was going to follow up with me. And they're telling this story that you told them, and everybody's happy. And every time...
That's systems and models right there.
Yeah, and it's just time. It's probably a lot of experience to do it the wrong way.
Right. I mean, that's what it is, though. Also, too, what the benefit you have from that, though, is this: you have two things. One, you have control of the transaction, and you are looked at as an authority, as authority of the subject, and you create. They know when to call you, they know when not to call you. And if they call you and you don't respond, they're not irritated with you because you've already communicated to them when you are going to communicate with them, right? So,
or even better yet, you start getting messages like, hey Matt, this is Keith. Listen, I know you're probably busy right now and I'm sure we're going to talk to you on Tuesday.
Yes.
But I just saw this property and it's Friday night. I'm excited about it. If you have a chance, give me a call tonight.
Exactly.
And now I get this message and I'm like, okay, great. I need to reach out to Matt.
When you have time.
As soon as I have a moment. And by the way, he's appreciative of the fact that he knows it's not Tuesday or Thursday, but he just found a property, he's excited.
Yes.
And now we're still on the same page.
Yes.
But they're saying it for you on the phone, right?
Absolutely.
So
it's when you have listings, it's imperative also. You guys know this, like when you have a new listing that comes on the market that had 5 showings over the weekend, your client's anxious. They're calling you on Sunday. You're at church or you're watching the Hawks game and
Hawks game. I know you're watching the Hawks game,
right? So it's like then it's and then Monday comes and you haven't done any of the follow-ups on Sunday because you're spending time with your friends and family or whoever else, right?
Sure.
And then on Monday you are doing follow-up with those showings, right? But agents are really busy on Monday sometimes, so you don't have a lot of feedback. And then they're reaching out to you, wondering what the heck is going on, but you fail to communicate that you're gonna follow up with them on Tuesday with all the showings from the previous weekend, right? So then you just have this huge problem where people start to get frustrated with you only because of your lack of communication.
Well, and this is the thing when you're not super busy and you're a newer agent or you're a slower agent and you're trying to build your business, you can get away without having these systems, right? Because when you only got one client, you can talk to that client every day. You can answer their phone call every hour. But as you start to grow and to scale, these things become more and more important. And so it's literally, I think one thing about all this conversation we just had is that it's taking the time to stop and work on your business and set it in your business a little bit.
Right.
meaning that I can work in my business, showing houses, writing contracts, negotiating, making calls. I can also work on my business, which means a lot of times I come to the office in the evening or on a Saturday, or even just set a day of the week aside and I say, I'm gonna work on my business, where I sit down and think about these things.
Right.
I sit down and go, okay, I'm not going on a listing appointment today, I'm not writing a contract, but hypothetically speaking, if I was gonna take a listing today, what would be the best way to map this out? And you create that system for yourself at a moment of kind of quietness, right? Like a little self-thought, where you say, listen, I'm gonna make all of my listings go live on a Monday. I'm gonna collect offers between Monday and Thursday. I'm gonna review all offers on Thursday, meet with my client on Friday and get back to everybody on Saturday. Or I'm gonna make my listings go live on Friday and tell your clients, like, listen, here's the deal. I do pictures on this day. I make listings go live on this day. When I get offers, this is how I'll communicate with you. And by the way, I'll follow up with all the showings on a Monday, and I'll give you a call on Tuesday with a full report of all the information I have.
Right.
Again, you don't have to do that when you're not busy.
Right.
And when you haven't scaled your
Which
business.
creates bad habits.
Right.
Yeah.
But when you start to get there, so it's just beginning with the end in mind, right?
Yeah.
It's sitting down up front and going back to scripts and dialogues and prospecting. It's the same thing. Too many agents show up and go, I know I need to prospect, but they set the time aside, but they didn't set the time aside to like decide who they were going to prospect to, what they were going to actually say, to practice any sort of a script ahead of time. And now all of a sudden they're spending their prospecting time getting ready to even start prospecting, right? Or learning scripts, right? That's the importance, I think, about scripting on a continual basis, is that you get to shake it up a little bit, learn new scripts and practice scripts, as opposed to sitting down and going, what script do I need? Right? What script am I lacking? And a lot of times script identification is just look at the problems in your business. Look at your struggles. So I mean, if you're routinely struggling with getting your sellers to price their houses right from the get-go, then that's probably a scripting issue.
Absolutely.
You know, if you're continually struggling with, you're showing buyers houses and houses and houses, and then they're finding the perfect house and then putting in offers that aren't getting accepted, probably a scripting issue. Right? You're either not conveying them or talking to them appropriately to where they're putting in aggressive offers, or where they're putting in the offers that they need to be putting in to get the houses accepted, or maybe they need to be looking in a different price range, right? Because they can't go above a certain area. But most of the times when you see a recurring problem in your business, getting price reductions, right? Angry sellers because the flyer box is empty, whatever the problem is, right? Look at your business.
That can be a big one right now, price adjustments. I mean, agents were having those conversations with their clients earlier this year.
Well, you didn't have to, right?
You didn't have to. The market, it wasn't that.
When the market's going up, you could price the house right, or you could even price it a little above market. Market will catch it on its way up. So you're not having it. Well, the real estate market now is leveling off, right? And people have done this, like, my neighbor priced here, so I'm going to price here, and my neighbor priced here, right? So all of a sudden you get a house that's not moving. It's been 2 or 3 weeks. You have an aggravated client. Are you equipped to go have that conversation with them? Lay out market facts, lay out their price, talk about showing activity.
And keep the listing.
Right. And keep their respect.
The relationship.
And their relationship, and keeping them a raving fan, right? How are they going to be talking to you when talking about you when the transaction's over? Right? Like, hey, Matt was a pretty cool guy, but to be honest, like, I think we'd have been better off with someone else because we had to do 3 price reductions to get our house sold. And, you know, whether they want to own it themselves, that they wanted too much for their house and had to reduce the price, or whether they want to pin it on you is really irrelevant, right? So it's funny how you can have clients, the transaction goes extremely rough, but at the end of it, they totally respect you and appreciate you.
That's happened numerous times.
Everything you've done for them, and they're appreciative and thankful. And you can have transactions that go flawless, and by the end of it, you know, they think you're a jackass, or they don't like you, or they're angry, or they're mad, or they're not going to refer you. And a lot of it, again, is just about the scripts and the conversations you were using, the guided conversations you were having, and how you were handling the situations. And your ability to handle a situation is usually indicative of whether or not you've been in that situation, you've handled that situation before, or whether you're prepared for it. So.
Yeah, I dig it. I have to go.
Matt's got to go.
I can pick up my son.
Seahawks game starting.
Yeah, right.